Welcome to Across the Goal Line. I'm your host, the Encyclopedia of Sports, Luke Austin. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the NFL Coaching Carousel that's going on. Got one job that is already filled. If you hear anything in the background, I'm watching this Titans-Chiefs wildcard playoff game. The Chiefs are absolutely destroying the Titans at the moment, 21-7. About 10 minutes to go in the third quarter. Mike Mularkey reports are out that this potentially could be his last game. Um, I'll get to that here in a minute. But before I get into discussing, some rumors, my predictions for what I think will happen this year uh, during during this period in the NFL that happens every year with teams firing coaches and going out and hiring their replacements. Um, but go follow and like Across the Goal Line on all social media. Subscribe right here on YouTube. Links are down in the description below. Um, be It'd be great if you could do all that. If you don't wish to do that, so be it. But I guess I'll get started. Don't want to really ramble on today. I'm going to try to get this recorded, edited, get the video made, and get it out on YouTube as quickly as possible so everybody here on YouTube can take a listen to it. So, and be sure to share and retweet, and repost all across the goal line news, anything that I put out in a post on Facebook, tweet on Twitter, or a post on Instagram. Be sure to share it so other people can get the chance to see it as well. So, as I said, Coaching Carousel, about 5 teams, I believe it was, fired their head coach. One during the regular season, that being the Giants. They fired Ben McAdoo. Um, but then other teams that fired coaches. There's five teams, 6 teams. One has already been filled, as I said. John Gruden, who you might hear in the background. As I said, I'm watching the Titans Chiefs wildcard playoff game. It is on ESPN and ABC, and Sean McDonough and John Gruden are announcing the game, calling the game, and in what will be Gruden's last game as a announcer. As I said, he'll be getting back on the sidelines, and I'll get to that here towards the end of the show. But yeah, there's five openings. The Cardinals, the Bears, the Lions, the Colts, and the Giants. So the Giants, they fired Ben McAdoo during the season. And before I go any further, I do want to say one thing. This time period in the NFL with coaches on the move, teams looking for a new coach, it's until everything is finalized and official, till every single T is crossed and every single I is dotted. It's all speculation and it's chaos at the same time. So um, you're going to hear a lot of reports, a lot of rumors, but until it is final, I don't believe any of it. So, and this year too, during this time period in the NFL, I don't think there's really any good candidates that really have won before as a head coach, or there might be some guys that I'll get into that haven't even been a head coach before, but the ones that have been a head coach before, they really haven't won, and their names are coming up again. Um, but some teams, they might say, is this the guy, that can really lead this team to a Super Bowl and then win a Super Bowl? We'll have to see. Only time, will tell. Said 5 openings then. Cardinals, because Bruce Arians retired at the age of 65. The Bears fired John Fox. The Lions also fired Jim Caldwell. both Fox and Caldwell have now been fired by at least two teams. Fox has been fired by three teams in the NFL. The Colts fired Chuck Pagano, and then the Giants, as I said, fired Ben McAdoo now for the third time during the regular season. And then John Gruden is going to be the next head football coach for the Oakland Raiders. I will get to that towards the end of the show today. And then I was surprised that the Baltimore Ravens and Dallas Cowboys did not make a move. The Ravens have missed the playoffs for 3 straight years now, and the Cowboys, they had a bad year this year because, well, Dak had a sophomore slump, and then Zeke got suspended, and they couldn't play without him. And injuries again in the NFL this year, more so this year than I think ever in years past. The year of the injury, the NFL, 2017. I've said it before, I'll say it again. And maybe that's why both the Ravens and Cowboys. You can't do that. That's not a touch. Oh, they're going to call it a touchdown. They'll end up reviewing it. I'll get to that here in a minute. But maybe that's why the Ravens and Cowboys decided to keep John Harbaugh and Jason Garrett. What just happened in this game, the wild card game, it looked like Mariota was across the line of scrimmage when he threw the ball. But then it looked like it got tipped by a Chiefs defender, and then Mariota caught it. Yeah, that's what happened, and then he scored because they're inside the 5-yard line. He's an eligible receiver, according to the officials, so it is a touchdown. He broke the plane, went across the goal line, and scored a touchdown, and now the Chiefs lead the Titans 21-9. More than likely going to be 21-10 here in a minute. And we'll have to see if the Chiefs decide to challenge us. Scoring drive took up all the third quarter so far. About 6.5 minutes left. Ryan Succop's about ready to kick a extra point, and it will be 21-10. Kansas City Chiefs or the Tennessee Titans right now with about 6.5 minutes to go in the third quarter in the first wildcard game of the 2018 NFL playoffs. Back to the coaching carousel and rumors discussion. Speaking of the Titans too, as I said at the beginning of the show here, Mike Mularkey could potentially be fired by the Titans depending on how this game plays out according to a lot of reports. As I said, this game's going on as I speak. I'm watching it. I just gave you a play-by-play of what just happened. And I think there is a good chance that they do, fire him. Just because, and if you remember, he was the head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars there for a couple years, and he didn't have success there, and then Tennessee takes a chance on him. Really hasn't had a whole lot of success. He's had more success in Nashville than what he did in Jacksonville, but I don't think they would. They don't like where they are at the moment, and they think the Titans franchise and owner think they could be in a different position right now. With him being in Tennessee for 3+ years now, but we'll have to see if they make a move. I am not going to discuss though who I think could take this job, because he is still the head football coach for the Tennessee Titans at the moment as I speak. I'm only going to be talking about open vacancies. I know one has already been filled before I recorded here, so I'll talk about that. As I said, Gruden going back to the sidelines with the Raiders. Get to that here at the end of the show. But any other open vacancy. Now, if I'm still recording, and I shouldn't be by the time this game gets over, unless I ramble on for 5 hours, I'll be done, and Mularkey will still be the head coach for the Titans. But if they do decide to fire him, I potentially might talk about that next week in what would be my NFL playoffs divisional round predictions. So keep an eye out for that. I'll have that out here sometime sometime this upcoming week. And then last thing before I do get into the openings, the Bengals decided to retain head coach Marvin Lewis. They extended him for another 2 years. It was shocking, right? Since he's never won a playoff game in his 15-year tenure with the Cincinnati Bengals. But maybe the Bengals see something in Marvin Lewis that we don't. As I said, only time's going to tell. Uh, Potentially after next year, possibly after next year, if they have another bad year, maybe then they get rid of him and show him the back door. But we'll have to see. But as of now, they extended him for 2 years through the end of the 2019 season, and Marvin Lewis is still the head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. This play, they're showing the replay of it. One of the weirdest plays I've seen in quite some time. As I said, Mariota looked like across the line of scrimmage there, threw the ball into the end zone, got tipped by a Kansas City defender. I believe it was Darrelle Revis, former Pitt product from Aliquippa. Hasn't played a down in the NFL in a couple years. Last time he played was when he was with the Patriots, when they went on and defeated the Seahawks in Super Bowl 49. But then, like I said, it looked like Revis tipped it, but then Mariota had caught it and scored. And as I said, the score stands 21-10 now. The Chiefs over the Titans in the first wild card playoff game of the 2018 season, I guess you could say, playoff season. And then the Broncos, they decided to retain Vance Joseph after the Broncos started out strong, but then finished 5-11 in his first season as head coach. So I'll get into open vacancies now. The Cardinals, Bears, Lions, Colts, and Giants all have openings. So who's going to fill these vacancies? Yeah, I'll tell you who I think will fill those right now. I'll start with the Arizona Cardinals. They had to replace Bruce Arians after he decided to retire from football at the age of 65. Carson Palmer, their former quarterback now, also decided to retire after a 15-year career. I think the Cardinals, and hopefully they go in this direction and go after an offensive-minded coach to keep things going the way that they have been in the past 5 years. Because the Cardinals, during that time period, have been terrific, other than the year that they went to the Super Bowl, because that year that it was astronomical. No one, I sure as hell didn't believe the Cardinals would ever play in the Super Bowl, let alone come that close, basically a blade of grass close to winning and defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then, this past year with the Rams, the LA Rams being so good in Sean McVay's first year as the Rams head coach. But you do have Larry Fitzgerald, a future first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion, another Pitt product, and Adrian Peterson, who they traded for this past year, and as of now will be with the team next season, 2018. And then you also got David Johnson coming back from injury. The defense, I think, is pretty decent. You got Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson on that side of the ball. And, so with that, I wouldn't mind a defensive-minded coach, but I think they should go and stay in the same direction that they've had the past two times they've looked for a head coach. Before Bruce Arians, it was Ken Wisenhunt, two former Steeler offensive coordinators. So I think they should stay in that direction, stick with offense, and hire current Vikings offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur. As I said, he's currently the offensive coordinator for the Vikings. He was the head coach for the Cleveland Browns from 2011 to 2012, and he had a 9-23 record in Cleveland. But the Browns are the Browns. He also was the interim for a game. He has a 10-23 overall record as a head coach. Was the interim head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles for one game after the Eagles fired Chip Kelly after the 2015 season. But I don't really think his stay in Cleveland should count because, as I said, the Browns are the Browns. And today, they had a parade, at least the fans did, celebrating the team's 0-16 season. That's not something you want to be a part of or even proud of. So I'm not even going to say any more on that. But everything does happen for a reason, and now his name is coming back up for a head coaching job, and I think Arizona would be a good fit and a clean, fresh start for Pat Shurmur. Who knows? Maybe he brings over Case Keenum in free agency to replace Carson Palmer at quarterback. Now that you have a whole quarterback, will it be the right move for the future? Probably not. But Keenum, he has had one hell of a year stepping in for Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Bradford, and he will be a hot commodity, I think, in free agency this year. Probably going to have a roughing the kicker or a running into the kicker. And now Adoree Jackson is trying to run for his life, and he's tackled right on the other side of the 50-yard line there. But we're probably going to have a roughing the kicker, and the Chiefs might get the ball back. But Keenum had one hell of a year, as I said. He's going to be a hot commodity, I think, in free agency this year. So you better, snatch him up, while you had the chance. And then that's going to be roughing, I'd say. Maybe a little acting there by Colquitt. I believe that's Brandon Colquitt. I know there's two Colquitts in the NFL. One was playing for the Chiefs, still is obviously, and the one was playing for the Denver Broncos. And then their father, he played in the NFL for a while back in the day. Won a couple Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But speaking of the Steelers in Pennsylvania, I'll move on here. Current assistant offensive line coach for the Vikings, Andrew Janocko, who is a native of Clearfield, Pennsylvania. As I said, speaking of Pennsylvania, and Pitt. He played at Pitt, was a quarterback. Talking about a lot of Pitt products today for some reason. Being a Penn State fan, I don't know why I'm doing that, but I am. And Clearfield, Pennsylvania is also where this show, Across the Goal Line, has originated from, as I have as well. As I said, he's currently an assistant with the Vikings and is reportedly close to Pat Shurmur, the current offensive coordinator. I'd hope they'd be close, with Andrew being an assistant offensive line coach and Shurmur being the offensive coordinator. So maybe Shurmur, wherever he gets a head coaching job at, if he gets one, maybe he brings, Coach Andrew Janocko, with him. His father, Tim, has had great success at the high school level, being a head coach, being the Clearfield Bison head football coach for over 30 years. Chiefs ended up punting again, but then Adoree Jackson ended up muffing the punt. I believe Kansas City recovered. We'll get the call here in a minute. Yeah, Kansas City looked like that. They on that replay, it looked like they recovered, but we'll see here in a minute. So that's who I think the Cardinals will take. I think they'll hire Pat Shurmur. He has already interviewed for the job, so that's a good sign. We'll have to see what happens. Now they're saying, at least John Gruden just said, it was a fair catch by Adoree Jackson, but the Kansas City Chiefs have now got the ball back on the 28-yard line, going in, and could potentially put this game away with about 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. Handoff to Hunt, loses about 2.5 yards, 2 yards. But if Kansas City scores here, this game's going to be out of reach, as then the Titans would be down 17, 18 points going into the fourth quarter. But Cardinals, go get Pat Shurmur. Bears are next. They fired John Fox after 3 years. They hired him 3 years ago. And now Fox has been fired by 3 NFL franchises, 2 of which he led that team to the Super Bowl. He led the Panthers to Super Bowl 38, lost to the New England Patriots because Adam Vinatieri is one of the best kickers in NFL history. And then he was fired by the Denver Broncos as well after a year after. Um, I believe it was a year after, or it might have been after the game. Um, After the Broncos lost to the Seattle Seahawks. And yeah, no, it would have been Super Bowl 47. Yeah, it would have been the year after because the Broncos ended up losing. I remember that game to the Baltimore Ravens at home on a on the net. I'd say the next to last play of the game on a Joe Flacco Hail Mary in Denver at Mile High. But that's nothing really I need to get into. As I said, Fox has been fired by the Panthers and Broncos, who he led them to Super Bowls, and now the Chicago Bears. So the Bears are looking for another head coach. They really haven't been the same since they went to Super Bowl 41, if you ask me. And that year they had Rex Grossman at quarterback. Then they went through Kyle Orton, Jay Cutler. Then last year they signed Mike Glennon in free agency. But then in the draft, after free agency last year, they decided to trade up one spot with the San Francisco 49ers. The Chiefs just missed a field goal because it doinked off the left upright. But then the Bears decided to trade up one spot with the 49ers from 3 to 2, drafted Mitch Trubisky from North Carolina, and really, according to most people and myself, I think is the future of the franchise for the Bears. So, what does a young quarterback need? An offensive-minded coach, if you ask me. Because it's only going to make him, better year after year. And this prediction, might surprise you as much, or might even be bigger, a bigger surprise to some, to what I think, is going to happen in Arizona. Possibly Pat Shurmur, maybe even somebody else. I think the Bears should go out and get Josh McDaniels, current offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. Sort of the same case as Pat Shurmur, former head coach, didn't really have success, at his previous stop. 11-17 in 1.5 years out in Denver with the Broncos. He was fired halfway through the second year. But now again is a hot commodity because teams, it seems like, want coaches that have had experience, whether or not they've had success, whether that makes, any sense to you or not. Some people it does, some people it doesn't. But I mean, whatever floats your boat. It's hard to tell what these teams are going to do. But I think McDaniels would be a good fit in Chi-Town there with old Mitchell or Mitch Trubisky. And McDaniels said Shurmur was interviewed by the Cardinals. McDaniels has so far only been interviewed by the Colts and New York Giants. And this, depending on how this Titans-Chiefs game plays out, is a rumored choice to replace Mike Mularkey in Tennessee. And I think Tennessee would probably be a better fit than Chicago. Tennessee's got more weapons than the Bears, I think, at the moment. I think you got a better quarterback. I think Mariota's 10 times better than Trubisky. But Trubisky's, 2 years younger? So maybe down the road that'll factor in. Probably not a whole lot, but potentially it could. But McDaniels is a rumored choice to take over from Mularkey in Tennessee if they do decide to fire him after this game. And it's still 21-10. That muffed punt really didn't hurt the Titans. They get the ball back now towards the end of the third quarter. On what yard line they at? Come on, ESPN. Go to a different view. They're on the 38-yard line. Thank you very much. 38-yard line. They got a first down to Corey Davis now. They're going to have about 50 yards to go to score another first down. So, and as I said, a little bit ago too, Tennessee, it's not open, so I'm not going to, really get into that. But McDaniels, potentially he could go to Tennessee if it opens up, because I heard there's a connection between the Patriots and somebody in the Tennessee front office that used to work in New England. So we'll have to see what happens. But and as I said, I potentially could talk about it next week in the NFL playoffs divisional round preview. Next vacancy in the NFL is another NFC North team, the Detroit Lions. They just fired Jim Caldwell after 4 seasons, 2 playoff appearances in those 4 seasons, more than I believe they had in the previous 20 years. And I was surprised they did decide to fire him. He was, I think, 28 and 35 in the 4 years in Detroit there. But they obviously wanted to move in a new direction, so now they're looking for a new head coach. A name to watch and potentially could actually happen, I think, is current New England defensive coordinator Matt Patricia. So New England could lose both coordinators and possibly their head football coach, Bill Belichick. I'll get to that here in a minute as well. And you might say, why Patricia? Why not an offensive guy? Matt Stafford's one of the best quarterbacks. Well, yeah, he is, and their offense is great. But again, what division do the Lions play in? They play in the NFC North. The Lions, they're, as I said, their offense is pretty good. Maybe whoever they do decide to hire, maybe keep Jim Bob Cooter at offensive coordinator. Maybe the Lions decide to hire Jim Bob Cooter as their next head football coach. But the Packers are also in the NFC North. They have a good offense. Well, I shouldn't say weather, but what the hell are you showing, John Gruden, on your phone? Better not be porn, but I shouldn't say whether or not Aaron Rodgers is healthy. When Aaron Rodgers is healthy, the Packers are good. When he's not, they suck. We saw it happen this year with Brett Hundley backing him up and stepping in for him when he broke his collarbone. But Packers are also in that division. The Vikings did so good in all phases of the ball, all aspects, offense, defense, and special teams, and that's why they're the number 2 seed in the NFC right now in the playoffs. Got a bye this week. They'll play next week in the playoffs. But you got to stop the opposing team from scoring more points. So I think a great up-and-coming coach that really knows, how to coach defense, knows how to stop the other team from scoring. I think Matt Patricia, would be the right guy for the Detroit Lions, and I think he'll finally leave New England for a head coaching job. As he's been linked to other jobs in the past couple of years. Mike Vrabel, former Patriots player and current Texans defensive coordinator, could also be an option for the Lions. We'll see what happens, but what they do say: defense wins championships, and offense sells tickets. They already got a good offense. They've obviously boosted their ticket sales in the past couple years after they went 0-16 there in 2008. Hopefully, the Browns will be in this situation in a couple years. But we'll see. Only time's going to tell. But if Detroit wants to win championships, go defense, go out and hire Matt Patricia. Next to last, then, is the Indianapolis Colts job. This will be Colts GM Chris Ballard's first big move as the Colts GM. Moving into second year, really didn't. They had free agency last year in the draft, but really this is the first big move, I think. Firing a head coach and going out and getting another head coach. And if he doesn't get this right, his tenure, might be over before he even gets a chance to, get going in the right direction. But Ballard was the director of player personnel and football operations with the Kansas City Chiefs from 2013 to 2016. I doubt any of you guys knew that. but he probably does have a good connection with current Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy, as Nagy was an assistant, and he still is. Obviously, as I say, he's currently the Chiefs offensive coordinator, and um, so they were there together in Kansas City, during the same time period, and we've seen how good the Chiefs offenses can be, um, and with the connection and everything, I think Ballard would be stupid not to go out and at least interview Matt Nagy, and I think you should go out and hire Matt Nagy if you're the Indianapolis Colts, and it'd be a good clean fresh start for the Colts franchise and the offense, especially with Andrew Luck being hurt. But when Luck is healthy, they also have Jacoby Brissett, who they traded for through New England at the beginning of the year. But when Luck's healthy, we've seen how good the Colts can be. They were, one game away from going to Super Bowl 49 against the Seahawks. But, back then, Tom Brady liked his balls a lot softer. So that's why they ended up losing. So, Matt Nagy, I think, will be the next head football coach for the Indianapolis Colts. And then the next to last, because I got Gruden here coming up. The Gruden, old Chucky, getting back. Derrick Henry, long ass touchdown run. This game's Tennessee's right back in this game. Maybe Mike Mularkey won't get fired. 14 just started the fourth quarter. 14 minutes to go. 21-16 now. Going to be 21-17 more than likely, bearing a missed extra point or a blocked extra point. But Tennessee's right back in this ball game. We'll have to see what happens. Maybe this game. Maybe I'll stay on and do some play-by-play here at the end of how this game shakes out. And their last drive, when they scored, was 8 minutes. This one, 3 minutes. So they're doing the right thing. They're going for 2. Okay, yeah, be right move. Be down 3. Good play call, and it looked like the ball hit the turf, hit the ground. We'll see. There's a flag on the play. But yeah, next to last coaching vacancy now. As I said, I got old Chucky, John Gruden, here at the end. I'm saving that for last. Legal shift on the offense. So they're down 5 now. Kansas City declined the penalty. So yeah, Titans are down 5 now. Can't even kick an extra point. But so they're going to need a touchdown to take the lead. Went to commercial. I'll get back to talking about coaching vacancies now. Giants are next to last. Said Gruden, Raiders coming up here at the end. Stay tuned. Giants fired Ben McAdoo during the season, and right now they do, or they could, I should say, have a good chance to go out and get one of the NFL's best, current New England Patriot head coach Bill Belichick. There has been some recent news coming out about some tension in New England recently with owner Robert Kraft, head coach Bill Belichick, and starting quarterback Tom Brady. That this could potentially be the last season that the trio could be together. I would, and I think the whole world would love to see the Patriots lose in the playoffs, and hopefully they do. And that could lead to some changes. But on the other hand, I could see New England just running the table like normal and winning another Super Bowl. It'd be their sixth Super Bowl, tying the Steelers for the most in the NFL. But we'll have to see what happens. I have a feeling though that they'll lose. But they got to play the games, so we'll see what happens. If they do lose, I think Tom Brady would be the one to go. whether they, trade him, release him, whatever the case may be. I think Brady would be the first one to go. Probably, traded rather than released, because then the Patriots can get something in return. But if you go back and look at history, and look at some great NFL quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls, they normally don't end their career with the teams that they won those Super Bowls with. To name a few, Joe Montana won 4 titles with the 49ers. They traded him to the Kansas City Chiefs. Kurt Warner won a Super Bowl with the St. Louis Rams. Ended up getting rid of him. Went to the Giants, then went to Arizona, led the Cardinals to a Super Bowl, ended up losing, as I said, by basically a blade of grass to the Pittsburgh Steelers, because Santonio Holmes has one of the greatest catches in NFL history, Super Bowl history, for that matter as well. Brett Favre is another one. Played in 2 Super Bowls with the Packers, won one. Went to Minnesota, went and played for the Jets as well. And then Peyton Manning. He won, played in 4 Super Bowls, won one with the Colts, lost another, lost his first Super Bowl in Denver, but then he went out a winner in Super Bowl 50. So Peyton Manning's the one that did something after he went somewhere else. He went on and won another Super Bowl. But to name a few, Montana, Warner, Favre, and Manning, Peyton Manning that is, that have gone on and really haven't done a whole lot. Peyton being the lone exception there. As I said, he went on and won another Super Bowl. But could Brady now be the next great quarterback to go down the same road? We'll have to see. But on the other hand, Robert Kraft, he might want to keep Brady and let Belichick go. If he does, the Giants need to throw everything, in my opinion, everything including the kitchen sink at Bill Belichick. If you remember, Belichick was an assistant with the New York Football Giants for about 11 years, from 79 to 1990, including winning 2 Super Bowls as the defensive coordinator, before he took the Cleveland Browns head coaching job. Bet you didn't know that either. Probably the biggest mistake the Browns have ever made, as Belichick more than likely will go down, if not the greatest, one of the greatest head coaches in football, especially in NFL history. Would he, go to the team that defeated the Pats twice in Super Bowls? That's keeping him from having 7 Super Bowl rings as a head football coach. He has 7 total now, 5 as a head coach for the Patriots, 2 as an assistant there as a defensive coordinator with the Giants back in the 80s, as I said. But it's hard to tell. But if the Patriots lose in the playoffs, I think Bill Belichick will be the next head football coach for the New York Giants. Never say never. Supposedly, reportedly, he sees an opening that he really hasn't seen, before, to leave New England. And, this really, could be the year that one of the 3 or 2, maybe Kraft decides to sell the team. Maybe all 3 of those key figures up in New England, maybe this is their last year together. We'll see. But, realistically, in closing on the Giants, as I said, still got to talk about John Gruden real quick. Do I think this will be the last year for those 3 men in New England? No. But, nothing lasts forever. So as I've said a lot today already, only time will tell. But then, the big news, you have probably heard him in the background a little bit. Chucky, John Gruden, getting back into coaching, as he will officially be introduced as the new and next head coach for the Oakland Raiders this upcoming Tuesday. Reportedly a 10-year, $100 million deal. Be making $10 million a year then for Gruden after coming out of the booth, working for ESPN for the last 9 years. The only concern I think some people have is that he hasn't coached in a long time. But, it's like riding a bike, I think, if you ask me. Say you're riding, and then you stop for a while, but you want to get back on, after taking however many years off. Um, are you going to forget, how to ride that bike? No. At least I hope not. So I compare that to coaching. Yeah, he coached, hasn't coached in a while, but do you really think John Gruden, of all people, forgets how to coach? I don't think so. Yeah, the game has changed since 2008, and but I do believe John Gruden will do a fine job and lead the Raiders back to the promised land, and potentially a Super Bowl win. So then, in closing, to end the show today, I'm going to recap these real quick. Raiders, basically set in stone. John Gruden. Cardinals, I think, should go out and get Pat Shurmur, current Vikings offensive coordinator and former Browns head coach. The Bears, I think, should go out and get Josh McDaniels, current offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots and former Denver Broncos head coach. Potentially could go to Tennessee if they decide to fire Mike Mularkey after this game. We'll have to see how this game plays out. The Lions, I think, should go after current New England Patriots defensive coordinator Matt Patricia. The Colts, I think, should go out and hire Matt Nagy, current offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then the Giants, it's just a prediction, folks. I think they'll hire Bill Belichick as their next head football coach. Other names I think you should keep an eye out for, though. Jim Schwartz, current Eagles defensive coordinator, former Lions head coach, was the head coach for the Lions when they went 0-16. So, I don't know if anybody would want that. But as I said, it seems this year teams, they want coaches with experience, whether they've had success or not. But we'll have to see what happens. Steve Wilkes, current Panthers defensive coordinator. Frank Reich, offensive coordinator currently with the Eagles. So Philly could potentially lose both of their coordinators as well, depending on what happens. Because, these coaching carousels, it's like dominoes, especially in college football. One guy leaves to go to another school, somebody from another school could, take that job then, and then the school he just left, opens up. So say Belichick does go to the Giants, New England's going to open up. If Tennessee fires Mularkey, obviously that's going to open up. But, you just got to give it some time, let a couple of days pass by, and, hopefully within the next week and a half, 2 weeks, all these vacancies will be filled, and everybody will have, each team will have a new head coach. Mike Vrabel, talked about him a little bit. Current Texans defense coordinator, former Patriots player, linked to the Detroit and Indianapolis jobs, so we'll have to see what happens there. And then a name I don't think a lot of people are talking about is Todd Haley, current offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, former Chiefs head coach. Really didn't have success there either. That's why he was fired. But look at McDaniels, look at Pat Shurmur. Todd Haley could be a replacement for Mike Mularkey in Nashville with the Titans if McDaniels decides to stay in New England or takes another job. But as I said, just give us some time. We'll hopefully have all these filled, here within the next week and a half, 2 weeks. But Todd Haley, really, I think should, be at least a candidate for one of these jobs. Look at Pittsburgh's offense, since he's been the offensive coordinator. One of the best, if not the best, offense in the National Football League. So, before I let everybody go, John Gruden, I think, I don't think he is getting back into coaching. I think 2 Patriot coordinators, though, go to the NFC North. Patricia to the Lions, McDaniels to the Bears. 2 former head coaches then, Shurmur and McDaniels, that didn't succeed before, potentially Haley as well, and potentially Jim Schwartz added to that as well. Maybe get back into coaching and try for a fresh start. So hopefully you enjoyed. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Across the Goal Line on all social media. Links are down in the description below, and I will see everybody later.